Welcome to Israeli Adventures, the podcast that unveils the opulence and charm of the Holy Land. This is Benny Levine's podcast, your host and the proud owner of Luxury Experiential Travel. Join me as we explore the finest destinations and experiences that Israel has to offer. Get ready to indulge in the ultimate luxury escape.
Okay, welcome for another chapter in the Israeli Adventure podcast. I'm Benny Levine, the owner of Let Travel, Go Maever, and Black Flamingo, and today with me a special guest on one of the most sexy topics in the world, wine and the Israeli wine, and her name is Roni Sasalove. She is a winemaker. She was born into a family that made their own wine. She is one of the authors of the Israeli wine book. She have a podcast that is connected all about wine in Hebrew. And she is also an unbelievable person that knows everything about wine in Israel. So, Roni, welcome, and it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
That's great. So, Roni, let's jump straight in and just tell me a little bit about yourself.
I fell in love with wine when I was very young. Wine was always in our family. My father's Canadian, and we lived in Israel most of our life. And ice wine is one of the most amazing dessert wines in Canada. So whenever we had a bottle, we used to cherish it and sip it and enjoy the smell. And it was a huge event. So I think I appreciated wine from a very early age in a very small amount. And then when I was about 14 years old, my father, that was a computer engineer, decided he had enough of it and just started making wine. Technically 100 kilos of grapes in our garage. Me and my sister stomped it with our feet. It was lots of fun. And since then, just everything kind of rolled. He built a winery, Sarek Winery. After a few years, we built Sasalove Winery, one of the first boutique wineries in Israel, planted our own grapes. It was lots of fun. It was very exciting times.
Oh, it seems like it. It's what can be better when you're, 12, 14 and your bat mitzvah and you're already stepping on wine with your bare foot?
Yes.
Okay, that's
It's
great.
more painful than it sounds, but it was lots of fun.
So what made you, this is a great child experience, but at the end, what made you really go and deal with wine, be part of the wine world?
I think I started with my own route. I plan on being a veterinary doctor when I was from 6 years old until 23. And then I finished my bachelor degree in science and I worked as a veterinary nurse. And I realized that my dream and the reality were too far apart. And I joined the family winery in the beginning, just a little bit. And there I found something completely different. The dream and the reality, to a great degree, the dream, the reality was, it was just lots of fun. Also in a family winery, it was very creative. It was every day was different, which is what I love about it, which is how I lead my life today, doing lots of very different things, very interesting things, a lot of them within the wine industry. I lived the wine industry since about 91. In 91, There wasn't much in Israel. So since then, I pretty much kind of invented my life, and wine, the local wine, I feel is my playground. And each time I feel like, what do I want to do next? And so it's the book that I wrote with colleagues, with all the wineries in Israel, and it's the podcast, and it's the sensory enhancement workshops.
I'm gonna ask you about those because those are super fun. But you mentioned you had a family winery and a father that was in a computer engineering world, and suddenly you're making wine in your garage and it's turning into being one of the first boutique wineries in Israel, that today we have so many of them, and you wrote a book, and I promised to ask you about that as well, because it's a great crowdfunding project that you did. But tell me about your family winery, and it was new for everyone at that time. Yeah.
It was a great adventure. It was lots of fun. It really was doing whatever we wanted to do because at that time, I mean, Israel is an ancient wine country. Wine has been made here for thousands of years. There's near Jericho, the oldest commercial vineyard from almost 9,000 years ago.
Wow.
In Yavne, there is the oldest commercial winery from 1,500 years ago, that by seeing what they did, they understood what is needed to make quality wine. So wine was always made here. And yet in the 90s, it was kind of started again, but it started again with looking at France and wanting to be Bordeaux and making lots of Cabernet and Chardonnay and beautiful, big, robust wines. And that was kind of the vibe. And it's really nice how since then, it has evolved very fast. As you noticed in Israel, everything changes very fast. Also the wine industry. When I started, we were about between 5 to 10 boutique wineries. Now, there's probably over 400.
Wow.
That's insane.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Wow. And how is it to be, it's always interesting for me to see like innovation and being like somewhere in you're out of the comfort zone. What does it mean to be a winemaker? Because you're also not just like a wine expert, you're also a winemaker, and that's a world that belong in many ways to men, like the whole wine industry around the world. So yeah, we have innovative people, and you are inspiration for many people around that I speak around. Like if I want to open a door in a in a winery in Israel, I say your name. But just tell me in few words, what does it mean to be a winemaker? What are the skills? What does it mean to be a female winemaker in Israel?
So I'll start with to be a female. I think it's not only the wine industry that's male, it's the whole world is dominated by male. So it's also within the wine industry, but it's pretty much everywhere. And I think one of the first things I started as I wrote on my card, assistant winemaker. And then I heard someone say, how can she call herself even like use the word winemaker? She didn't study winemaking. And at that time, hardly anyone in Israel studied winemaking. It was just a bunch of guys, saying, we want to make wine, let's make wine.
Very
Hardly
Israeli.
any education. And I heard that and still kind of pinched me a bit. So I did travel to study winemaking professionally, get my diploma in it.
In your face, guys.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's like,
perfect.
and I'm very happy I did. I'm very happy it gave me kind of a boost. And more than even the kind of certificate, the diploma, it was something that with time and knowledge is power. Then I did get to the point that people came to the winery, and those that really tried to impress, it's like, come on, please don't try to impress me. Share what you feel, but don't try to be like all pompous about it. Because I lived wine all of my life, it was never something of status. It was never something posh. It was never something elite. It's lots of fun. It's amazing. It's the most magical drink there is. Now let's have fun with it. That was always my attitude. And that kind of like bursts bubble, and I think in a beautiful way, because I feel that making wine like a posh and something more distant really turns people off from it. Because like, oh, I don't know about wine. You don't need to know anything. Drink it. Do you like it? That's a good start. You don't like it, don't drink it. It doesn't matter how much it costs or where it's from. You have everything you need within you to understand wine. And what I do is teach how to read, teach how to understand what aromas there are in wine and what stories they tell about the grape, about the making, about where it was made. It's really like reading poetry or a book, smelling wine and tasting it. And that's one of the things I love. It's making it so accessible for everyone to say, of course it smells like lychee. And it's like, oh my God, that's the first time I said that. And kind of opening doors. Because
So, like you have a very interesting approach. Like I did so many wine tasting experiences all around the world. Like, me and Jonathan, our mutual friend, we started a wine club. So I went into wine. Now I own a wine refrigerator that constantly kind of becoming empty because of that approach that you coming with. Just drink it, just experience it, then you will fall in love with it. You have a workshop that is super unique. Like, I don't want to really like do any like spoilers, but you closing people's eyes and you start to use different senses. Tell me a little bit more about this workshop.
Yeah. First of all, it's lots of fun.
It is.
Because the first thing I do is help everyone understand how technically their senses work. What is the sense of smell? What is the sense of taste? How do they feel separate? What happens when they're together? And it's super simple and yet amazing things. Like, one of the things I do is everyone has blindfolds on, and I have little bottles with things inside, a real thing, a fruit, a vegetable, a spice. And I ask 3 questions. When they can't see it, their eyes, that's the first thing that is off. So they count on their sense of smell. So the first question is, does it have a smell? If it doesn't, if it's below your threshold, you can stop there. But if it does have some smell, the next question will be, is it familiar? Like a very vague, do you think you smelled anything similar to it ever in your life? And that's something that your brain many times will be able to say yes, because the chain that happens from having some smell, some aroma go into your nose and into your brain to the memory part of your senses, that's where everything is kept. That's still approachable. And the third question, and usually the most difficult one, is, so what is it? But before what is it, there are many questions, because our brain needs questions to give us answers. So you ask as many questions as possible. Does it remind you of a color, of a place? Is it dry? Is it sweet? Is it sour? Is it anything? And many times your brain will also tell you, oh, it smells like fresh cut grass. I don't know why. And it always makes sense. And it's amazing in these workshops how always someone's grandmother kind of pops up. Oh, it reminds me of my grandmother's home, her cooking, her cake, because smell is very nostalgic. And smelling wine is actually a very nostalgic experience because it has the potential of raising a memory. And that's insane.
It's crazy.
That's insane.
It's crazy you say so, because when you do those workshops, people come and they waiting for like a wine tasting workshop, and suddenly you take them back to who they are, to their deepest memories. I, by the way, now understand why. We've been visiting with my wife. We visited this winery somewhere in Bulgaria, and we had such a great experience, and we loved the wine. We bought like 6 bottles. We came back home, and we gave one of them to a good friend that like drink also wine. And he's like, "Why would you give me that shitty wine?" But we drink it, and we have that memory of being in that place, the sunset, the swim that we had before that in the river. So we have like an emotional feeling to wine, and it's just the smell of it, just the open of it, it's already getting you excited.
Exactly.
So on this workshop, how do you move this transition, like from the memories, like you set up the stage, then you go and you expose them to the Israeli wine industry? What are the main things you want people to know about the Israeli wines when you get them from that stage to the wine tasting?
Into the wine. To really understand Israel, like through wine. By tasting wine, understanding the culture, understanding the history, understanding the intensity, understanding the complexity, understanding another layer of Israel through the wines that are made. Because the wine is a direct kind of showcase of the soil, of the people, of the climate, of so many things. So in all my workshops, all the wines are all local. From small and big wineries. And each time I bring in the wines that I find most exciting in that period. And now we're playing around with lots of pet nat, sparkling, natural sparkled wine, some orange wines, some lots of funky things, in addition to the big, strong, full, because it's a constantly evolving industry here. And it's really nice to show kind of what are the really exciting things that are happening here now. People are being very creative. People are dropping oh, this is how wine is made. This is how wine needs to be made. It's like, let's make the best thing we can and be as creative and show also ourselves through the wine. So it's always the personality of the winemaker that is in that bottle.
That's by the way, I think one of the things I love about the Israeli wine industry is that we have no history. We have ancient history. You mentioned it, like thousands of years, but then suddenly, we have not only the Golan Heights wineries and not Zichron Yaakov, Yekvei Carmel, or the Carmel winery that was the first wines to be export to other countries. Now we have basically a group of winemakers in different ages that have no rules, like in France you have to do this wine by this way, and suddenly here you don't have the rules. So there are wineries that making, I don't know, wine in concrete barrels. That's like things like that are really crazy innovative. Sometimes they are successful, sometimes they are not. For me, I have one surprise question for you is the workshops, where do you do them? Let's finish that part for a second, because my mind is like, I want to get a little bit more information from you. But where do those workshops take place if people want to experience that? Because you do it for smaller groups, but also bigger groups. So where do they take place?
I like to kind of custom tailor to specific group. It can be anywhere. It can be in a winery, it can be in a restaurant, it can be in a hotel, there's a place I love doing, Serendipity in Jaffa. That's a sweet place of Israeli wine, so I like conducting tastings and workshops there. It can be absolutely anywhere.
So that's perfect. So if you want, make sure you contact Roni Sasalove and experience this amazing workshop. Believe me, you will love it. You might, one warning, you might have that workshop repeating every day, because that's just the perfect afternoon, especially in the summer, and change locations. Now that we know it can be done everywhere. But for you, one thing, I love travel. I build travel, and that's, for about 160 families and groups a year. If I give you right now, out of your head, one day, we live in Tel Aviv, you want me to explore and get a taste of the modern Israeli wine within a range. I don't want to drive to the Negev. I just want to be like one day from Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. What are you going to take? Where do you take us, and what we will experience?
The nice advantage of Israel is that it's tiny. So it's really easy. Half an hour, it can be in the Judea region, which is the first official wine region of Israel. We have one. We're on the way of getting a second one, the Negev, the desert. So it would probably be Judea, either Judea or the Carmel, which is where the Baron Rothschild created the new wine industry. So there are, and I would go to a small winery, a small boutique winery, and either a tiny winery or depending on where. So it's tough to give names, because really there are both in the Judea and in the Carmel some fantastic wineries that really portray the region. Like in the Carmel, that's an area that a lot of Carignan was grown in the times of the Baron Rothschild. And for many years, slightly poorly wine was made from it. They were growing in very high yield. They didn't make quality wines from it. So a lot of it was uprooted. And yet some grape grower says, no, we believe in the Carignan, the fact that it just needs to be grown differently. So now in the Carmel region, we have some fantastic old vines. if it's many wines, Stomach Winery makes a beautiful one, and Vitkin, and there are other wines in the region, wineries. It's Margalit, it's Amphora and Dada. There are really so many. It's so easy. It really is.
So it's like a region that have like the oldest vines in Israel, like
Uh,
basically in many ways just because of the Rothschild.
of the new period,
Yeah.
yes, there are areas with that is more ancient as far as when were grapes grown there. But technically, I have to say, grapes naturally grew here, so they grew everywhere. So you still have, and that's another fun thing, is now kind of one of the newer project is ancient grape varieties, things that are endemic locally, like Marawi and Bituni and Jandali. And now we're researching even more grape varieties, and we have wineries like Kremizan, the monastery, and Latrun, that making the Buki.
That it's like really ancient, like thousands of years
Yeah.
grapes that grew up
Yeah.
here. They are good for the climate.
Yeah, it's
And
most
na-
likely what Jesus and Noah drank.
All right,
Yeah.
that sounds good. And but ancient wines were not the wines that we know today, right? It's like
Yeah.
they were much higher percentage of alcohol.
Most likely, actually, lower.
Lower?
Most likely, yes, because they were all naturally fermented, and we don't really know at what sugar level they were picked, but we do assume that the yeast, first of all, perhaps died earlier, and even more than that, the fact that we drink now wine kind of clean or straight up, the grapes ferment and we have wine, is of the very few hundreds of years. In the past, many times it was mixed with water. So
Okay.
the percent of alcohol might have been around 6%. It's definitely not in the quality we drink now. It was most likely with some aromas, maybe a vinegar, maybe a rotten apples, different things like that. We're definitely drinking things that are, on one hand, cleaner and more fresh and more fruit. With slightly higher alcohol. We don't drink it all the time. In the past, for thousands of years, people drank wine pretty much to survive. Water wasn't always clean.
Oh, you add the wine to the
Exactly.
water in order to clean them. That makes
Exactly.
sense why, in the Game of Thrones or all the TV shows, they always drinking wine.
Yeah, wine or beer, anything with alcohol.
Yeah, like just to have not to have any stomach ache.
Exactly.
I think we need to start doing that today.
Again.
It is great fun. So I know you were telling me a little bit before about different wineries that still doing like they preserving their wines or aging them in like clay pots. So there is like if you want to explore wine that is unreal and unique, it's really like give us a call or give Roni a call and just make sure you like book her for a day, because I promise you will see things that you're not seeing usually. And a lot of things were born around COVID and a little bit before, and had the time to complete different projects. That's how I got into wine. And we are having a tour together.
Yes.
Roni, actually, I asked Roni to build a trip to Israel that is surrounded by wine. We'll tell you a little bit more about that. It's part of our limited edition. But Roni, you decided to take this world of boutique wineries and create a book. And you actually did a crowdfunding for that book. Can you tell me a little bit more about the book and what was the idea that you had and what was the most interesting part when you were like writing it?
Yeah. It was very interesting to write it because it was pretty much to put, I say ours because it's also Guy Haran and which we co-wrote together, and Itamar Gur that designed it, and David Silverman, who's a photographer. So the four of us got together and pretty much wanted to put our soul into pages. And the four of us have been living the wine industry for many years. And we want to help it move forward and grow and survive and succeed and all that. And one of the things we understood, especially in COVID, is that the connection between the people and the wineries and the winemakers is crucial. because the restaurants were the first to close, and the hotels and tourism, and then many times the shops. And people could still go to wineries because they could host outside.
Oh,
And
perfect.
all of a sudden, people were going out, but the information was scarce. You can go on Google and find what is where. But we said, let's put it all together, and let's also give even more information about the ancient grape varieties and all sorts of different things, and really show what is happening here now. And we decided to make it that we don't receive like the money for production from the wineries, which is what was common in the past for a project. We said we want to do it how I want to write whatever I want to write. No one is
Okay.
paying me, no advertisement, nothing. The only people that I want is the ones that say, yes, I want that book. And we started with the crowdfunding, and we finished after, I think, about a month with 201%.
Oh my God.
Which was amazing.
That's
it
great.
really showed us that people want it and are interested in it.
And people value like a true, honest opinion.
Exactly.
Like I know I have a recommended list of restaurants that, are probably spread around 20 to 30,000 people a year. Not even people that traveling with us. We still have it and we go to taste because it's an honest
Exactly.
answer. So tell me one discovery that you went to during this writing of the book. Did you found one winery you didn't know about and like you were impressed by?
Even more, the main thing I think I found was about writing it was how the people that decided to build a winery always have a very open heart and a very interesting story and are crazy in the most wonderful way. It's always colorful people. And the stories behind it, I have to say, sometimes, I sat with my laptop and I was just crying, I was just crying. It really touched my heart, the different stories of how a lot of these wineries created. Each one has a story, and I was really excited and emotional to be able to make this connection, to take this story of a person that had a dream, that the wine, really transitioned their life, and to help them appear, it was really exciting. It was really beautiful.
Wow.
And if in the past many people came to me and says, oh, I want to start a winery, and I'm like, the best of luck. It touched me in a different way. It really did. And I was very happy that it was far from being technical. It was far from just showcasing. It was really, I felt it was something very important to do. To show all these people and what they're doing on these pages so they can reach more people. And up to now, we sold 15,000 copies.
Wow.
Which is amazing for a book, a physical book. It's not on the internet.
It's in Hebrew or
it's
English?
Both. It's both. It's a two-sided book.
What's the name of the book and how I can get one?
First of all, I'll make sure you get one. It's called Wine Journey, an Israeli Adventure.
Wow, Israeli Adventure.
Israeli Adventure.
This is the podcast, Israeli Adventures. Yes. Here you go, Israeli Adventure for the wine.
Yeah.
It sounds amazing. I think if you love wine and you're coming to Israel, no matter for how long, it's really choose that book. You will find out wineries that you never knew they are there. I'm sure if Roni found new places and new stories, for anyone, it will be like a great present. But you also created a podcast of yourself, and I love the name of it. Can you tell the name and what is it about? And
it's called Wine is Basic. It's because wine is basic.
And in Hebrew is literally mitzrach tzricha bsisi. It's like a basic consumption material.
Essential.
It's
essential in your life.
It's really essential in your life. Yeah.
So it's together with Guy Aron. It's in Hebrew. And and each episode we bring a different perspective. If it's on the vineyards, we just had 4 episodes on different elements: water, fire, earth, fire, water, wind, and how they influence. And we're recording soon an episode about the social responsibility and the social power that wine has.
There is great
culturally.
stories.
There are great stories in Israel.
One of my favorite is like Kishore Winery, that is like everybody that working there is with special needs.
Yeah.
There is so much. It's
Yeah.
so great. So Roni, before I thank you for coming and sharing your stories, we have a trip together to Israel about wine. And can you tell me in few words, like when we were building it, or actually I was not taking a part, but Roni, when you were building it, what you had in mind? Like, what is the experience you wanted to create? Because you got a mission to create a tour for wine enthusiasts in different levels, from like beginners to people that have collections, and you got the name of it, limited edition. So what you had in your mind? What are the things that are really make it like special, unique, limited?
It was lots of fun to work on it because it was kind of similar and different to the book. That was all the things I love in my soul in these pages. So in this strip, it was the places I love and the people I love and the non-conventional places that you might not know about, that you definitely, to many of them, don't even have accessibility, that it's people that are creative and are very Israeli, that are very local, that are creative souls within the culinary industry in Israel. The ones that are doing things that are very special and very unique and very interesting to meet, because I believe it's all about the people.
Yeah, great say, yeah.
It is. So pretty much, I think I chose from the people that I want our guests and visitors to meet.
You know, I'm joining that trip, right? Sometimes you have an opportunity, you can't miss it. It's literally like meeting people that are, behind the scenes, and just Roni could create that type of an experience from being in the field, in the middle of the vineyard, understanding what people do with leaves, talk to the winemakers, actually get tasting from the barrels, understand all different sides of the wine industry that usually very, very closed, very like it's held as a secret. And I know you're doing also tours to Portugal. And I'm going to Portugal, right? Like next week. I'm very lucky. Yes, Spain and Portugal, because we actually gonna build like an escape place for people to connect to nature and to the communities. So stay tuned, because we are having a tour to Israel, but we're also gonna have an opportunity to visit Portugal with the wine industry and the Jewish story behind the Jews in Portugal. So that's also something that is happening. But Roni, what you would like, any message you want to give to the listeners that are all over? And we probably have a lot of listeners from North America and Canada, and maybe give them, like, if you know, one advice of wine that they can go, or maybe two, one white, one red, that you can find in the States, just so when they listen to this chapter on our podcast, they can sip a glass of Israeli wine that they can find in their convenience stores, or something that is being imported to the States or Canada.
The main thing I can say is just taste everything, try everything, see who around you imports, some of the smaller wineries, some of the boutique wineries, but also some of the big wineries. They're going through a transition, the big wineries in Israel. In the past, they were first commercial, and now in all of them, the level of quality and curiosity and creativity has gone up. So just to drink lots of Israeli wine.
So that's your good advice to the people. Roni, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for clearing your time. It's always a pleasure. I study a lot. And please, like, really have a moment with Roni when you come here to Israel. You will not regret that. I'm telling you. And thank you for listening. Again, we see you next week. Shalom, shalom.
Thanks for tuning in to Israeli Adventures. I hope you had a blast exploring the luxury vacation scene here in Israel. Stay adventurous, keep embracing the fun, and let your wanderlust lead you to extraordinary experiences. See you next time for more fantastic escapades, safe travels, and endless joy to all our awesome listeners from Benny Levine.